Hey, what's up, everybody? That is probably the lamest opening you're going to see on Fantasy NBA tonight, and that's because they're letting me run the controls, and that is coincidentally why we're getting a little bit of a late start here. And so welcome to the Waiver Wire edition, and we're going to get after it here. Go ahead and click into Zane Denani's article. Okay, I'm getting the good thumbs up here from guys like Vince Miracle. Looks like our is clear. And probably the producer here, guys, because I am not good at this for whatever reason. So, yeah, exciting day in hoops. The Kings actually held on, and that's good for me as I took my trip up there to Reno to feast on the number 34. And other than that, we got waiver wire deadlines coming up here soon. And so, yeah, we're going to get right into it here, and we'll start with the guards, and then what you guys want to do is just go ahead and send in all of your questions, and I'll try to cover some ground here on the guards as we go through this, and then by then I'm sure user questions will start piling up. All right, so pulling up this here article, Zane Denani is our wire guy. He's one of our better brother. They play as strenuously as anybody I know out there, and he just released his waiver wire column, so I am excited to pick it up because it gives me a list of players to talk about, and I think I usually play in deeper leagues, so a lot of times I'm looking at guys like Sean Kilpatrick. Who else would I be looking at? Even a guy like Etwan Moore or Jameer Nelson, probably. I don't know how that game is going since Emmanuel Mudiay is going off for quite a bit of points. He had 22 in the first quarter. And so I don't know that we'll see anything out of Jameer Nelson. 6 points, 2 boards, 2 assists. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking at leagues. But when Zane goes, he's looking at guys that are owned in less than 50% of Yahoo leagues. So go check that out at hoop-ball.com and give it a look, because that's what I'm going to go off of. I think every week it gives me that good base of guys to talk about. And then as we get going, I'll go ahead and take your questions. So, all right, let's get this thing going here. Tyler Johnson is the first on his list, 26% owned in Yahoo leagues. I don't know what is going on there with that. I think the Heat schedule has been a little light. Just off the top of my head, I want to say they got a 2-game week this last week, and a 3-game week the week before, or maybe they're looking at a 3-game week. Maybe that's why he's not owned as much, but he's just he looks really good on the court. There's not a lot of action with that during the, but I guess I did understand it because, I guess it's easy to make fun of. If you don't know how good Tyler Johnson really is, I'm all about picking up Josh Richardson too. So it's kind of hard, in the first few weeks of the season, especially if you're like a lot of us, really, people follow the Bruski 150 that went into drafts and picked up some guys that were hurt. If you're sitting there with Drew Holiday, a lot of guys have Drew Holiday, you might not have a lot of space on your bench. So I'm eyeballing Josh Richardson and, doubling, checking that from floor is going to be good enough to go around for them for the course of the year. They all have late round floors, and that's really what you're looking for out of an upside pick. If there's anything about Josh Richardson that I'm not sure about, it's that he can continue to shoot the way that he shot last year, because those are kind of ridiculous numbers, especially for a rookie that came out of the second round. Getting word here, I need to turn my camera off. Turning off the video would help. Okay, thank you, Vince Miracle, for that. I don't think they definitely want to see me, Vince, so we're going to keep going with it unless you tell me that the audio is really, really bad. And that's the kind of assistance I get on Fantasy NBA today. Not how to set the shit, not get us going live on time, just that the audio is terrible, and that's apparently my fault. Anyway, moving on. Sergio Rodriguez shows up, 30% owned. Not necessarily I don't know, this is really and tremendous threat to his value. Yes, when he comes back, he'll give something that they don't have in Philly, which is really the ability to rise up and pops up here. 39% owned again. This is a guy who I think in the season kids comes up next on Zane's list at 18% owned. He's actually been, I think, a one so far, and I don't know that the Mavs have a 2-game week this week, and that's a little bit iffy. But you just don't know with this Dirk Nowitzki thing, and it's going to get interesting in Dallas. We're going to cover a few of these Dallas guys here. If something happens to Dirk, all bets are off. And I also wonder, with an own 5-star, some of these beat writers here are kind of teasing the idea of tanking. It's not something that Dallas does very well. I don't know if Mark Cuban or Rick Carlisle will sign on that. But, if they end up, say, 1-9, and Dirk's not all ready, this could turn into kind of like a Miami-like situation where they don't have a tremendous amount of bigs. I mean, yeah, they got Andrew Bogut, and maybe they do play Salah Mejri, but a lot of their better players are small, can get up on the floor, and I think you might see them turn into a running team, at least as far as a way to compete on a night-to-night basis. So that could up the pace and up everybody's numbers. And a guy like J.J. Barea would thrive in that environment. So it's hard because if Dirk comes back, not this upcoming week, but the following week, you kind of waste your pick. J.J. Barea, because he value starting minutes is not exactly ideal. I mean, you're probably looking at something like top 125 value for that segment, which is actually a great time to segue. We're going to be releasing our start-sit tool here pretty soon, and that'll be one way for you guys to actually figure out the differences in value for a weekly decision, whether you're looking at 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, 5 games, and how does that math really work out. So we'll be using the projections with a blend of Bruski 150 numbers, as well as kind of like a proprietary formula of looking at our projections from a few different angles. We're just kind of blending them all together. It's actually just a lot of experimental stuff with the numbers, but you'll be able to get a good idea for where all start-sit decisions. Again, that's for the premium membership, which is going to continue to stay on sale for the next week. So $19.99 if you go sign up for it. It will go up to $29.99. Basically, once we stop doing the free stuff with the Fantasy NBA tonight, that's when the sale will end. And that'll be about 7 days from now. So get on it while you can. All right. Patty Mills rounds out this list at 20% owned, and Zane has him as being owned in 14-team leagues. And I like that recommendation. I mean, he is a 12-team guy, but, he had a stinker last night. I think it was like 4 points, not much else. And that's what's going to happen with players aren't going to be great enough when he's on to offset those bad nights. So I'm thinking like top 125 value for Patty Mills on a per game basis per year. And that's really something you want in a 14-team league. Okay, let's check for the chat room here, if I'm operating correctly. I will not need Emmys from in running these shows, at least not now. I will eventually get up to speed and be good at this, but this is not my forte. They don't load. I don't get the chat. Vince and those guys, they don't help me. They leave me hanging here as I try to find your questions, and I'll probably just tell them, send me a link chat room, and then we go that way. Let's see here. So Vince. All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll work into the shooting guards here. We'll definitely clean this show up. A lot of stuff going on at who we're excited about. I'll just give some intrigue to it. And just getting ready to season. I still am recovering from the run up to the season and doing everything that we did. It was a big success, and couldn't be happier with the way things are going over here at Hoop Ball. But I'll say this: the regular season is still foggy on, and haven't really had time to dive into how to run these shows. Whereas the guys, they run them every night, and you should definitely check them out. We've got a great stable coming in, and they're just doing amazing things for us. And the day-night format that we've got going on right now is basically giving you the pregame, the postgame, and really this is just the beginning of what we're doing here too. So I'm just excited about what we can deliver to you guys. I mean, I always approach this as I want to win these things. You want to win these things while you're here, and I feel like we've got a lot of innovative minds working together, pulling in the same direction. And that's something that, it's actually kind of rare in this industry. And there's Mr. Miracle with the link to the chat room. We will see if it actually works. And of course it doesn't. Or does it? Oh, there we go. We are live with your questions. Thank you very much. I was getting a little frustrated because I want to answer some questions for you guys. That's what this show's about. It's a waiver wire show. And what we're basically trying to do with this is get you ready for, especially if you do a Sunday night fab league, free agent acquisition budget is a very popular format. I love that format because I feel like, ad drops on a first come, first served basis basically just reward you for being by a computer. There's not a whole lot of value to that as far as the competitive fantasy leagues go. You see that in competitive fantasy leagues with players that play, competitively, to be competitive about it. But it's confidence ranking. If you have $1,000 in your fab budget, how much do you want to spend on a guy like Justin Hamilton, for instance, was last week's big play. I ended up getting him for about 214 of 1,000 fab dollars. The next highest bid, I want to say, was 120. So I could have saved some money there and done a lower bid. But as of right now, he's top 80 to top 115, 9 and 8 cat leagues respectively in about 26 minutes per game. And really, I mean, this is just scratching the surface for this guy. None of his numbers appear to be out of line. So no real outlier, at least I didn't see any. That's really what you're hoping for. Actually, more than I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that he can just hang on to top 150 value while the Nets are at full strength, and as guys start to fall, you start to see his creep up, and you're hoping to get yourself a top 75 to top 50 value. Because if really over the course of the year, see too many of them. Alan Fang writes, "Hey Aaron, how would you rank Kilpatrick, Cephalosha, Aminu, and Hamilton in 12-team head-to-head?" I'm going to try to not be so difficult on the photo and punting thing and head-to-head, where guys that are like kind of like Hamilton and some of these guys are the same on this list, where Thabo Cephalosha, they don't get big counting stats, but you see a hesitancy for people to grab them in head-to-head leagues because they think they need pop in each category. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I'm not anti-punting, but I don't aggressively seek punting strategies. I'll let them come to me in the draft. So I'll try not to, I'll try to honor your guys in the head-to-head leagues and how you guys look at these Cephalosha-like guys that, by virtue of not hurting you in any one area, actually bump their rankings up quite a bit, in my opinion. But, Kilpatrick is going to have a good couple weeks here with Jeremy Lin out, or however long Jeremy Lin's out. And he's a guy that I had in the top 200. And I think that's where you have to rank him on a pickup base, because you can't really go into it, just hoping that he keeps around and that he continues to progress. But I think he'll be a late round value down the stretch, as well as if anybody gets hurt. Congrats to him for continuing to take steps forward. Cephalosha he's real hot right now. I just don't think that you're really looking at him for anything other than top 150 value. Aminu, same thing. So I think I'm going to still take Hamilton in the particular situation, because it's not like these other guys have that type of upside, that top 50, top 75 upside in the event Brook Lopez gets hurt, or even if he can just get, 26 minutes a game continuously throughout the season. I think that kind of evaluation, even if Brook Lopez doesn't get hurt, and he's already getting big minutes. So, I take Hamilton in that situation. Chris Flaherty writes, Aaron, hope you had a nice weekend. Thank you very much. Prob the first of 20 Terrence Jones question. 12-team, head-to-head, 9-cat. Drop one of my back-end guys, Justin Ham, Mason Plumlee, Cody Zeller, Gary Harris, Tyler Johnson, Saric. That is a very Bruski 150 team. Congratulations for that. Looking at 9-cat here, Mason Plumlee loses the luster in 9-cat. That's not necessarily set in stone. If his passing role diminishes due to the additional ball handlers or some, kind of the way that the offense changes with all these guys getting better, and maybe don't rely on him as much as 9-cat value, might not get hit as hard. It did get hit previously last year. But I'd probably look at Mason, actually. If I'm looking at any one of those guys, and if I had to pick a second, it would be Zeller. You probably would be tempted to drop Saric. I have a hard time for a rookie, which is what he is, a rookie with experience. I have a hard time getting on his case about his first 5 to 10 games in the league. I mean, I watched him the other night against Kevin Love, and Kevin Love carved him up. But at the same time, Saric is going to get no respect from referees. I think that early on, until 20 or 30 games have passed, we're probably not going to see the best version of Saric. And at the same time, I don't see how they take him off the floor. I mean, you could kind of get a sense for how important he is to the Sixers by just seeing where they play him and kind of how they go back to him quickly. I just him off the floor. 25 minutes at a minimum per game this year. And then probably I'm thinking closer to like 29, 30. The question will be, can he shoot at a high enough percentage? And that's where a guy like Jared Bayless would help Saric out. And then Saric actually take some steps forward when they moved him the ball. And that's really, I think, his strength is going to be, is being kind of a utility knife inside. When he's cutting to the hoop, he's able to kind of finish around the rim. But when he starts stepping out and taking all those jumpers, those field goal percent are going to go way down. Saric, you'll be tempted to drop, but I just don't think that you want to drop somebody in that particular situation because his path to value is pretty easy there. So I'm going to say Mason Plumlee. Then if you want to go Zeller, only because of the injury risk, and I'm not high on dropping Zeller, Saric after that. And it's a fab on a T. Jones pickup. I think early in the year that you can afford to spend like 15% would be probably pretty good. Again, with these fab bids, you want to realize that if you win a player now, you're going to get, 23 weeks of him, 24 weeks, I think, what the length of the schedule is, like 25 weeks. You're going to get a lot of weeks out of him. And so that value is a lot greater. So a lot of people think they should hang on to those fab dollars. I'm actually on the other side of the line. You got to spend those fab dollars to be more than it seems right now. Okay, next question comes from Yuha. 12-team head-to-head. Rest of season value with some emphasis on the coming week schedule. That's one more. Luol Deng, Justin Hamilton, and Jameer. Okay. Well, Jameer, let's see how. Let's get a look at Jameer Nelson update. Jameer is 6 points. He's got the same line as he had earlier. So nothing really big at Jameer. I think Jameer, with 4 games and one issue with Emmanuel Mudiay going off right now, is Michael Malone was essentially challenging Mudiay. Mudiay is terrible, and it's actually impacted the entire team. So with that in mind, Jameer would be kind of a lock for those 20 minutes and probably 25, 27 if Mudiay had continued to struggle. Now I think you can almost like call off the dogs with that bet. He's probably closer to like a top 150, top 165 value, and you compound that over 4 days and 4 games, and he might be worth a lay down value for you. So I'm not really jumping at that. Hamilton, I think, is a must-own player, so I'm probably going to tell you to pick him up, but I kind of don't want to be repetitive about all this. So I'll just pretend you didn't mention him, and we'll go Luol Deng and Etuan Moore. LA's got 4 games. Moore's got, what do we got here? I'm going to check out the schedule grid tool, which, by the way, is a part of the premium membership. If you want to see a really cool schedule grid that calculates the rest of the games a team has for the year, is nice and easy to read. That's also a part of the in-season membership. Guy Mike Panador is the guy that's responsible for that and a lot of the other stuff that we'll be coming out with here later tonight. All right, so between Deng and Moore, I'm going to go with Deng if I had to pick, because he's got 4 games and Moore's got 3, and difference between the two of them. Deng is not great lately. I think change. So we'll go back to the vet. Archie Goodwin picked up by the Pelicans, and Lance Stevenson dropped. Applications does this have? Not a whole lot right now. I know people, you see the Archie Goodwin thing, and and even I did. I looked at that and I was like, oh, New Orleans Pelicans. I start thinking of Babbitt alerts and everything we saw out of the Pelicans last year. And that is a team. I mean, you got to look at it and say, this is very possibly Archie Goodwin's basketball team in April. He plays in a pretty stocked backcourt. I don't think anybody in a 12 to 16, 18, 20 team, probably even league is running out to go get him. If you're in a massive league, yeah, absolutely go get him, because that could be gold at the end of the year. And just kind of watch it. Let's see if he actually gets any run before making any ads. Let's see, is it Agam Shaw? Should I trade away Nicholas Batum and Devin Booker for John Wall? Yes, I'll tell you that right now. And the reason being is because John Wall is like he's a 2nd-round player, and Batum is going to be a 4th-round player. And if Devin Booker does well, he'll be a 4th-round player. But the value for a 2nd-round player are so much higher than that of a 4th-round player. And that's just assuming that both of, Batum and Booker do really, really well. So assumptions compared to the John Wall stays in his lane, doesn't get hurt. Yeah, there's this whole back-to-back thing, but I'm not really putting a lot of stock into that just yet. You do want to see the Wizards win a little bit and not implode, because absent that, that's actually going to, give them one reason to sit him down the stretch if he's having problems with his knee. Okay. Let's get this one out. Corey writes, and Rondo, right? Well, Rondo doesn't have to get better. He might. The thing with Rondo is he will get his numbers. He will be a mid to late round value as long as he's on the court and healthy. That's just the way that his fantasy game shapes up. He takes a lot of chances for steals, gets you the assists, and he rebounds. So between those things, and his percentages don't hurt you that much. So to late round is an 8/9 cat thing. In 9 cat leagues, he's obviously going to turn the ball over a lot. Jokic, let's get a Jokic update here. We got Jokic freaking owners out with 4 points, 2 assists, 2 boards, 1 steal and 1 block in 18 minutes. And let's take it. Nurkic. Nurkic has only played 13 minutes and the 3rd quarter started, so I am not sure exactly what's going on with Nurkic there. But here's the thing. They didn't do this yet, but I think what the obvious thing to do here is to play both guys at center 24 minutes a game. Hat tip to Josh Lloyd, who will probably join us, I think, late next week, if I have that right. But so he could give his thoughts on this. I don't want to quote him without, he said it on Twitter, so I guess he said it. So, we both agree that 24 minutes at center for both guys is completely smart reasoning, and then you just add 8 minutes of them playing together. Voila. Both guys get 32 minutes. Everybody's happy. I know that they want to trade for Reed, and also, Michael Malone challenges his guys, and he's not afraid to run hot hands. So that's kind of what you're seeing with all these minute fluctuations. But the story with the production and where this has gotten a little bit unhinged for owners is Emmanuel Mudiay's struggles really, really screwed this offense up early on. And what you've seen is Nurkic just with what they ask him to do, he gets the ball, he immediately makes a move with it, and he's either passing or scoring or creating his own rebounding opportunity. He's just a stat machine. and good for him. And that's great as far as his, his profitability. I think he will probably beat his ADP, and if not beat it, he might even just destroy it. We'll see. But with Jokic, you watch him, he does so many things for the Nuggets. He's out there screening on the perimeter. He's chasing around, perimeter players. He's spacing the floor. He's doing a lot of stuff where he can actually be marginalized if they're not going to him. And what I think you see out of the Denver Riders and the Denver fans and people just are fans of basketball in general is you want to see Jokic as a bigger part of the offense. And that's something they're going to continue to do. So yeah, Jokic is going to get better. It's not an if, it's a when. So it's a great tie low. You see this with stats that he's got right now. He's got that steal and block already. And that's the kind of thing that can kind of, soften a low scoring. I'm going to see Emmanuel Mudiay with 24, and the 22 of them in the first quarter. So there are some things. You got Wilson Chandler out there with 20 points as well. He's been real hot lately, and I'm pretty sure that Denver management has gone to him and said, hey, why don't you have yourself a nice first third of the season? They really need to make a trade, with him, Fareed. If you guys think that front offices don't get together with coaches and in the direction, and that front office coach there with Tim Connolly, the two of them are extremely on the same page. So I think for an organization to say, yeah, let's highlight these guys and get them out there while they're playing well and see if we can get a deal to happen. So all this stuff is buy low territory for Jokic. Okay, let's go back to Zane Donani's article here, and let's weigh in on what Zane has said. So Zane writes, as I flip screens here, in the shooting guards, we have Sean Kilpatrick, who number one, you're going to get late round value while Lynn is out, or at least you have a pretty good idea that you will. And then two, if he continues to just kind of tread water, you've really taken a low risk, bet on a guy that could probably, if the Nets start to implode or, lose guys to injury, and, Randy Foye and Gravis Vasquez aren't exactly healthy guys, could be in the mix there real soon, and then you could be sitting on a top 75 asset. So I like a speculative ad for Sean Kilpatrick. You're going a little bit, but Courtney Lee, he has there. Courtney Lee's 43% owned. I just think that he falls into a category of a lot of guys that are added in 12-team leagues and dropped a day later. Streamers are obviously using these guys, but they're better suited for deeper leagues. That's one more jumps on the list. I'm not really jumping on the more bandwagon this year. I mean, I love him as a reality pickup for the Pelicans. I thought a lot of teams should have been shopping there. Fantasy-wise, he needs about 30 minutes per game to be a late-round value, and I don't even know if that's guaranteed. So I'm not jumping on the train. Malcolm Brogdon is 1% owned. That's pretty lame. There needs to be more leagues that have Malcolm Brogdon owned. He's a good young player playing for Jason Kidd. Who knows what's going to happen with this guy? And that goes for a lot of the Bucks assets. Is you just don't know when Kidd is going to just go away from a guy. John Henson's owners know that for years. CJ Miles is great. I love the CJ Miles thing because he's so mysterious to fantasy owners. They wait, he hits 4 straight 20-point games. Everybody, time to pick up CJ Miles, and then he crushes them because Miles is the minute you feel like he's got a shot at getting hot. When he has a wave for surfers, you just got to throw caution to the wind and pick him up if you're going to gamble. And that way you don't take away the potential of your streaky. He usually will have about 4 to 12 good games before the knee starts acting up. And so if you're ready to play that game, you got to jump on it early. Small forwards, Tony Snell is on this list. Wow, Tony Snell, 2% owned. I don't know that Tony Snell is 1% better than Malcolm Brogdon. I really don't know about that. Snell, ever since he returned from injury, he writes, his minutes have increased steadily. I'm probably going to diverge from Zane on this one. I could see Tony Snell surprising us, but I'm not going to be sad if I miss out on it. So yeah, I'm going to go. I'm not on board with you, Zane, there. Solo Hill now 20% owned. This is the guy that I had fairly high in the Bruski 150, not tremendously high, but he's one of those head-to-head guys we're talking about, or anti-head-to-head guys where he's not doing a whole lot in any one category. He doesn't hurt you too much anywhere, and I think that's really the appeal. And he started picking up the pace a little bit, but I thought it really kind of his value that he gave up the backdoor layup to TJ Warren. That was just like a crushing play for a player that's supposed to hang his hat on defense. Lose a game over it. It's kind of thing that's going to make the coach really sour. And unless the coach is looking at this and saying, you know what, we got to get him some minutes so he doesn't get down on himself. Pardon me, doesn't get down on himself. It's hard to read those types of situations. I just know a coach looking at that's going to more than likely want to kick their board. They might not be ready to unleash Solo Hill. So that's that. Jaylen Brown, and one thing I noticed about not only this week, but the last couple of weeks, we haven't had a lot of clear-cut pickups. So there's been even some bad pickup type situations like Chris Dunn. I probably should have covered him in the point guard section, but I don't even know. Like Zane didn't have him on there, and for good reason. Like this is a guy currently getting about 26. He's bringing back like top 175. Top 200 value. Nothing looks tremendously good steals rate. I think he's averaging 2 steals a game. This year he's got like 6 assists, something like that. The scoring, which is lacking, and the field goal percentage is lacking, and then you get the turnover, all that stuff. There's just not a lot of value there. It's not like they're gonna all of the Wolves studs are going to stop shooting the ball so Chris Dunn can get 20 points per game or 15 points per game. He might score 15 points in a game sometime. But, I just don't understand when a stat set is so clear and set in stone, like what are these places doing recommending this player as an asset? It's almost as if they get fixated on it and they can't get off of their fixation or their bad bets. But there's a lot of people getting told to go out there and pick up Chris Dunn. I just don't understand it. Mathematically speaking, it just makes zero sense. Anyway, that's my Chris Dunn rant. Jaylen Brown had a really good game the other night, and good for Jaylen Brown. He has shown absolutely nothing in preseason, absolutely nothing in the summer league, and then he comes in and he has a pretty good game with Jay Crowder out. I don't think anybody at all should be running out there to get Jaylen Brown. And you can even make an argument that you probably don't do it in like a 25-team league, something like that. But it's good to see players like this that don't show any stat set whatsoever. A guy like Jay Crowder is actually the great, we'll talk about Justin Anderson here in a little bit too. Jay Crowder is the example that folks need to look at. He went and he just couldn't put together a stat set with any sort of fantasy value. His threes were low, his steals were low. His blocks were low, and he would occasionally have a game where he hit a couple threes and kind of flirted with some value there. He eventually put it all together and started stealing the ball a lot, and then really rounding out his game, getting more rebounds, hitting more threes, being a bigger part of the offense, and then letting that field goal percentage actually help him out. So you hope that he and that Jaylen Brown, Justin, guys like that, they can make that next step. Because it's really an easy path fantasy value for these 3-and-D guys. As long as they rebound, as long as they learn how to shoot the three, and then they start getting those steals rates up, that's really the key to get his value. And at the same time, he's got so many athletic tools. He's going to be buried in the depth chart there in Boston, and I don't see it for him this year. But I was actually recommending against picking him up even in dynasty leagues because his stat set was so bad. I might slow down a little bit on that. All right, let's get to some of your questions here. We have, should I trade away Nicholas Batum? Actually, we already answered that one. Trade Mike Conley and Dario Saric for Derek Favors and TJ Warren. I need to stop answering these trade questions because it's a waiver wire show, but Conley and Saric for Favors and Warren. Now, you got to take the Mike Conley. Here's the thing with TJ Warren that's interesting. He's producing top 20 to 40 fantasy value right now. So with that in mind, he is actually a fantasy asset because you can turn around. So could you spin that into a mid? There's some stupid owners out there. I mean, TJ Warren, I mean, unless there's some injury or, they're able to trade cards going with this is the problem, though, is Earl Watson is very much an experimenter, and, we could see any number of things out of their bigs, and PJ Tucker. So I'm not seeing it. As far as I'm going to give him a late round grade. Yes, you can assign him some upside beyond that. I just think the Conley and Sarge side probably TJ Warren, and a lot of you are thinking, do I pick him up? Yeah, pick him up. I mean, consider him a mid-level asset or a low to mid-level asset. I mean, he can return late round production, and we might have a little bit of upside beyond that. I do think there's some risk here as well because he does not have as many money counting stats as you would like. What kind of an buy would I have on a TJ Warren? Probably like 50 out of 1,000 fab dollars. So what's that? Like 5%. Okay, would I drop Josh Richardson or Rondé Jefferson Hollows, which is not the way his name is spelled, for Bismack? 9-cat head-to-head standard. Bismack Biyombo is really interesting because he's just sitting there getting his 20 minutes, and he's the easy guy to bench of them. They benched Serge Ibaka down the stretch the other day. It's another just kind of mind-numbingly bad fantasy recommendation out there is that he was going to actually be good this year. Bismack's the guy that's got the big money. He's there long-term. I mean, that's going to be his position sooner rather than later. And Nikola Vucevic and Serge Ibaka, something's got to give there, whether it's injury or trade or the fact that they want to play Bismack more. And so I really like Bismack as a stash. I'm sold on certain aspects of his value. I mean, obviously the free throw thing's an issue. He will get fouled more as he becomes more prominently involved in the game. But we saw what he was able to do with the full boat of minutes. And he's just got that, that natural ability to be a good center for fantasy purposes. You just want him to block shots. You want him to board, hit a high field goal percentage. And that's what all these athletic centers do. And I just think he's going to get the minutes. So, I mean, I think he's got top 75. You factor in a 9-cat, I think that could be. I like the value for a stash, and which one of those guys I drop? Probably Josh Richardson, and that's a tough one. And I'm kind of gambling a little bit that Rondé Hall Jefferson can just put it together. It's what he's got to do, and I'll flip up on that all day long, just because Rondé Hollis Jefferson is, in the grand scheme of things, not anywhere near as talented as Josh Richardson. And Josh Richardson also has a solid fantasy value. It's just in Miami with all those young guys, if they all stay, Josh Richardson might be more of a late round guy without the ceiling that a guy Rondé Hollis Jefferson has. Because Rondé Hollis Jefferson, he could just start getting defensive stats playing the game, and I think you could see a little bit something special there. But I'll flip-flop there 50 million times. All right. JaMychal James. I don't know who JaMychal James is. I'm going to assume you're going for JaMychal Green. And the question is should I drop JaMychal Green and Joe Johnson, or hold on to them for a little while longer? 12-team 9-cat standard. You can drop either of those guys, and neither of them have the upside to force you to hold them. Now I'm getting told the audio. I wonder if somebody give me a heads up if the audio is still bad. I have to ping the old Vince Miracle here and see if the audio is still bad. I'm going to continue along assuming that it's not bad. What do we got here? Is it better to hold Tim Frazier when Drew comes back in case Drew misses more games. It's better to trade Tim Frazier right now than basically every day that you have Tim Frazier is a day you shouldn't have had Tim Frazier. If you could have sold him on the first day of the season, you should have sold him on the first day of the season. And there's a couple games, those big games early on, that would have been the time that you wanted to sell Tim Frazier. I actually like his chances of maintaining some like top 150, top 175 value as this all goes down. I think he's proven himself to be a good player and somebody that, working out with Damian Lillard, these guys, well, especially, you learn from Damian Lillard, but with each other when they respect each other's games. So that's just kind of a clue for you. Tim Frazier, I think if you could get him, but if you could sell him now for anything, a late round value or above, I think you got to make that move. What else are we seeing? Seeing Cantor hit the wires. Yeah, he's a must-own player. So thank you, Eric Ong, for answering that. Kevin Brand asks, is Matt Barnes still holding a 12 team death? Thank you very much for that. How much easier would this all be if we just never had to talk about 9-cat? And I know, in head-to-head leagues, you hate ties. But figure out a different way to crack a tie. I don't know. To me, it's sizing these players for being good. And it adds such weird valuations. You got the top of the ranks. It does not matter if these guys turn the ball over. At least it doesn't matter as much. And then somebody in the top 80 can slide 60 slots because everything gets so bunched up in the middle. It's just really excellent question. Is really interesting that Alvin Gentry has just sort of turned the ball over to Lance. And I see coaches do this. Dave Yeager did a little bit, but Yeager at least was very honest about it. He's like, we just gave him the ball and said, go do stuff. And that's what Lance does. And I think that it's not very smart to do that when you've got young players that are going to be playing off of him and they're just kind of getting thrown to the side in that whole thing. So I think Buddy Hield, Etwan Moore, even Tim Frazier, all these guys will benefit a little bit from not watching Lance, do Lance stuff. And, tough luck to him on the groin injury. I think it was Sean Highkin said, hey, go enjoy that career in China. And one day they'll make a musical about you like they did with, what's his name, Stephen Marbury. All right, so let's to the old list here. We're going to have to crank it up here because I've got fab bids due in about 30 minutes. So as much as I love you guys, I cannot miss my own fab bids. What do we got? So Mo Harkless. Harkless is that same category as Aminu and a lot of other guys. Is they're going to be late round values, and then they're going to, be not much more than that, barring injuries. Doug McDermott is not a fantasy asset. And I know people will say he could help you with threes, but he just hurts you so many other places. So I'm not on the Doug McDermott train. Terrence Jones, we talked a lot about him. Trevor Booker. I'm fine with his, what was it, 19 minutes on Monday. He's been just great. He does what he does. He does this every time he gets 25 or more minutes, and owners need to ride that. I think he's going to be a late round value going forward until his knees start to give out. And, that's the story with him every year. So get Trevor Booker if you need. If you in your forward positions, he's just perfect for that. Go pick him up. Don't spend a lot on him in a fab league, but definitely pick him up with confidence, knowing that on a per game basis that he's going to get you late round value while he's healthy. And unfortunately, the Nets have a 3-game week. That is a little bit of a downer there, but I just think that if you need solid production, and a lot of your teams where you stash these injuries, you do that. So give him a hard look. We have covered Hamilton, and I'm calling him a leagues, and I'd probably call him a recommended player to own in 10-team leagues as well. Larry Nance, I kept trying to make Larry Nance happen a year ago, and it wasn't happening. He's going to be a fun player, and he's the type of guy that I think the Lakers are going to want to unleash, and he fits what Luke Walton would want to do with an up-tempo game. I think that The injuries are a concern, obviously. I don't think he's a must-grab player in 12-team leagues, but if you're looking for a stash in a 14 and a 16-team league, I absolutely love picking him up. But as a stash, I think he could be pretty interesting, assuming he can continue to put up, some sort of late-round value while you're stashing him. I hate when I do this. I know one of y'all sitting out there in one of my championship leagues listening to what I'm talking about, but I'll talk about it. John Lure, I think, is a great ad. He's got a 4-game week this week. I think you're seeing the reckoning of John. What it is he's just a good basketball player. Teams that needed to stretch fours should have been all over it. The Kings should have been. And not talking about Ryan Anderson. He's getting his run. He's going to be hit or miss. I don't think he's a must-add player in a 12-team league, but he's got a great stat set for fantasy value, and I just think that he's the type of player that Stan Van Gundy wants to eventually play. Now, can everybody get out of his way in the rotation and make it happen? I don't know, but I know during a 4-game week, I'm willing to take a gamble if I don't have to lose somebody of long-term value. All right. What do we got here for centers? Cody Zeller. Zeller is somebody, he's like a must-own player. What does he own? 24% of leagues? I mean, I understand that these Yahoo leagues, there's some 10-teamers in there. But 24% owned is ridiculous. He should be owned 12-team league period. Tyson Miller. Well, I will give Zane credit. I think Tyson Chandler was Zane's guy. And, I was kind of down on Tyson Chandler. And I think I'm down on the Phoenix Suns for not cutting him loose to a contender. He's, he shouldn't be playing for this basketball team, but he's there and he's getting his rebounds. So if he can keep it up, that's worth looking at while he's healthy. Mike Muscala. And I tried to make Mike Muscala happen a year ago. And it didn't happen last year, but I get it with Mike Muscala. He is a fantasy guy. He's going to hit you threes. He's kind of a lot like Justin Hamilton in the sense that he does a little of this, a little of that. Defensively, he's definitely not going to jump off the stat sheet, but he's just got his. So if you're in a deep league, just put him on your watch list and see if he's going to go off or not go off, but be worth adding. Frank the Tank Kaminsky, 11% owned. I think Frank is a nice 14-team league guy. You want somebody like this, he's giving you the top 50 value, but say everything clicks and injuries happens, he could get up into the top 80, top 90, with his number on a per game basis. His stat set's not great. He's more of like a shooting guard stat set, but I know that the Hornets want him to play. And that's good. And an injury played for court. He won injury risks amongst them all. But, in a deep league, I think good is. Amir Johnson, the recent reports seem like Al Horford's going to be back sooner rather than later. So I'm on a Amir Johnson train and got 3 games this week. So, on a per-game basis, I think he's worth an ad, but it does take a little of the luster because he's normally about a top 100. In a 3-game week, that might play like a top 140 guy. So really, I don't know what the point necessarily is for adding him. He might take a chance somewhere else. And that's it for the Denani Wire. Check that out online at www.hoopball.com. Let's get some of your questions here. And I'm going to try to get to them all. What do we got? Oh, no, there's more. No, there's not. Okay. So I think we're good. So we'll get this going. I will be more professional with my approach. I will learn how to use the software that we're using. I'll learn how to use YouTube, and I will try to have everything ready. But obviously right now I'm kind of running by the seat of my pants. But here we go. One last question. Thank you very much. I was feeling a little naked without that last question there. Patrick Patterson worth picking up. What did Patrick Patterson do tonight? It's a great question. I don't think he did a whole lot judging by the game, but maybe I'm wrong. What do we get here for Patrick Patterson? He had 6 points, 9 boards, 1 steal, 2 blocks. That's a classic Sacramento Kings situation where guys put up big lines against the Kings. I know that the bigs were in foul trouble, so he found himself closer to the hoop. That generally helped your fantasy value. The closer you play to the hoop, better. So as far as Patrick Patterson goes, telling you guys to go run out and pick a little bit. You're referring to Damari Carroll not doing anything, and then DeMar DeRozan taking so many shots per game. And the thing with DeMar DeRozan is he's becoming one of the elite players in the league. He's got the athleticism. As he gets his handles and the shot will finally show up for him, he's just going to be one of the better offensive players in the league. And so with that's going to come a lot of shots per game. Damari Carroll's not doing anything to earn his shots. And really, that knee injury in the playoffs a couple years ago was really bad. And it kind of, I don't want to say it derailed his career because he could still turn it around, but he really shouldn't have been playing on that thing. And that's what happens when you risk injury in those types of situations. So I don't think Patrick Patterson's going to be worth picking up. Two hit or miss. Pascal Siakam, butchering that name, he is a legit energy guy that will play a role in the NBA. He'll be a rotational guy for the rest of his career at a minimum. And that means Patrick Patterson's going to be his typical 25-minute per game role, in a 9-cat league. He can plot his way to top 150 value, but there's not much more than that. JJ was dropped. I'd pick him up. Absolutely. Go pick up JJ Redick. Redick is going to be a top 100 guy by the end of the year. That's not be a top 75 guy, maybe. This team knows how to play with each other. They're a known commodity. There's nothing about JJ Redick's game that has dropped off. He is money in the bank. I mean, yes, he could get hurt because he has those weird hip and the was it a noodle leg that he had there for a little bit, but he looks fine. Shooting guards can have half-season slumps. Probably Danny Green should have been on this list. I get a lot of Danny Green questions. Danny Green had percent for I think the second half of 2 years ago, and then came into the first half and shot 30. Or maybe I got that backed up. It's just what shooting guards do. You got to give Danny Green at least a hard look if you need a shooting guard on your roster. And I think the addition of Pau Gasol, if Pau Gasol wasn't there, I might not want to touch Danny Green with the 10-foot pole. I just think that Kawhi, LaMarcus, both would be better at moving the ball with a year under their belt in the system, with Kawhi being the man and kind of understanding how that works, working those issues last year. And then you add Pau Gasol, who's just a known facilitator. I think that could be a good thing for Danny Green, as he has lost pretty much all of his value. The injury did that to him. So, all right, we get one more question in here, guys. Anybody, one more question. All right, that's going to follow us online at Hoopball Tweets. Watch out, there's going to be a lot of announcements, and even tonight we'll be releasing some stuff for the in-season premium membership. And this is kind of a philosophy here. We're going to continuously try to improve these products, improve our offering. We're not compliant. We're not attached to some big corporation, where things go through 50 layers of reviews and, who knows what's going on. We want this thing stable. So check it out. Real quick, Langston Galloway. No, Langston Galloway. He needed 30 minutes per game in New York. And granted, it was a triangle, and you could argue that the triangle, kind of kills his fantasy value, but no Langston Galloway. Will TJ Warren keep it up? TJ Warren's a good basketball player. He really is. And he's fun to watch because he gets it. He understands the angles. He makes great cuts. And you just absolutely love watching him play. Does he do some stupid stuff? Yeah, absolutely. He does some stupid stuff. But it's his stat set that makes it hard to get behind for fantasy value. And when you consider we don't know what's going on with Brandon Knight. He could be hurt. He could be pissed off. Phoenix is really one of those organizations right now where I don't rule anything out with those guys. I think there's, potential for that team or organization to have some, not speaking in general or probably in any one position, but I just think that there's not a lot of stability there, and who knows what's going to happen. So if they get rid of Brandon Knight, could TJ Warren keep it up? Yeah. What would that look like? Maybe top 50 to 70. I really hard to believe that everybody else is going to stay out of his way so he can continue with this early round value. That sounds nuts to me. All right, so that'll do it. I got to put my waiver wire bids in. Thank you for putting up with my crappy audio feed. Thank you for putting up with the delays and my general lack of professionalism having this show ready. Follow us online at Hoopball Tweets. Check out the in-season premium membership on sale for $19.99 for at least the next week. We're going to keep things rolling for free at nights, at least for this next week, or probably, I should say, at most for this next week. So if you haven't picked up the membership, you might want to look into that. And that's it. We'll see you guys around. Have a good one.